I saw this interesting video this week that talked about the differences between the way males communicate and the way females communicate and how those things play out in terms of attracting the opposite sex. And one of the really big takeaways I took from that is that a lot of times as men, especially in this day and age, where we've kind of as men been told that a lot of the ways that we are being masculine is toxic. And while I will not dispute that claim that there are certain ways that men can be better, I think sometimes men take that to the extreme to mean that any kind of masculinity shown at all is toxic and we should not be doing that. And that's really a shame, because women actually like men that know how to communicate to them, that they can get a read off of them that they are being masculine. And so in this particular video, what it talked about was the subtle ways in which men and women communicate that are different. And the big takeaway was that the version of communication that women often use is indirect communication. And the reason that they use indirect communication is because in this world, unfortunately for them, they have a lot more stuff to look out for in reference to their safety. At any given time, they're not sure if they just outright say to a guy, hey, no, thank you, I'm not interested. If that guy's going to come and try to stalk them or kidnap them or bring harm to them or touch them inappropriately in very, very strong ways, which I don't want to say the word on YouTube and stuff like that. But the point is that those are real things that women really feel. In addition to when they're dealing with other women, honestly, women are a lot more intuitive about feelings and things than men are. And so they don't necessarily have to say a direct thing to another woman in order for her to get what it is. That's why the famous example of when a woman asks another woman, hey, how are you doing? And the other woman says, fine. The first woman will get a read like, oh, she's not really fine. I need to ask further and figure out what that is. Men, on the other hand, typically communicate in a way that's more direct. We have less threats going on, so we can just spout our opinions about things, and there's not going to be too much pushback on it. We can ask for things directly that we want, whether it's raises at our job, whether it's a wide variety of things, and there's not going to be a threat to us. So we are in the habit of, especially with other men, being more direct. Also, it's because it's a time saver. When we're dealing with other guys, we're trying to put together projects, we're trying to build things, we're trying to coordinate plans. We don't really have time to be indirect in our communication. So oftentimes we are more direct. So because we are typically the more direct communicative ones, at least in terms of the things that we want and desire, that is seen as a more masculine form of communication. So here is where the breakdown happens with men and women. Again, because women typically communicate with each other more indirectly, that is seen as a form of feminine communication. So when you as a guy are interested in a woman and you're doing all these things to try to hint to her that you like her, and you're being indirect in what your intentions are with her, most women can already suss that out. I've had plenty of women in my past say that they could tell that I had a crush on them, even as much as I was trying to hide it or trying to be secretive or passive about it. But also, when you communicate that way, you're being seen as communicating in a way that is feminine. If a woman is trying to go for a man that is leaning into his masculine, then that form of communication of you being indirect is not going to be attractive to her because she's viewing it as a feminine way of communication, okay? So what are examples of this? Well, here's a perfect example, okay? Let's say you like a woman and you want to take her on a date. The indirect, i.e. more feminine way of communicating would be to try to befriend her, try to hang out with her for a couple of months, act like you're just trying to be in the friend zone, and then maybe one day possibly espouse your feelings to her, which if you're a nice guy like I used to be, that's not going to happen. You're going to forever be in the zone of being shy and not really saying anything. But the point is, when you do that, again, most women can already read that you probably like her, but as long as you're not saying anything, she's also perfectly fine with just being your friend and just putting you in the friend zone. But understand, she's not seeing you as a masculine guy that you want to date. She's really seeing you in more of a feminine lens where she puts her other female friends. So you'll be put in the friend zone, okay, but you're not going to ever be in the zone of somebody she would date. Versus the more masculine form of communication is you say you randomly meet her and you're talking to her, you're vibing with her, you're having a good time. And at the end of that conversation, you say, hey, you know what? We should hang out sometime. Let me get your number. And then you get the number. And then the next time you call her, the first time you call her up, you say, hey, so we should go do something together. We should hang out. I'm going to take you out to a dinner, take you out to a movie, yada, yada, yada. Now, that is more direct communication. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, well, how do I know she wants to go out with me? And the reality is you don't. But that's also part of masculine communication, is being willing to make moves that are a little more risky. The reason that women don't want to ask out men is because, again, in order to do that, they have to be direct. But that directness, since it's a form of masculine communication, if she wants to stay in her feminine, she's not going to want to do that because she wants to feel more like the female. So what she might do is she might indirectly give hints to you that indicate that she'd be fine if you were to directly ask her out. But if you aren't doing that, then you're not going to be able to get where you want to go. And so this is why it's very, very important to understand that if you're trying to be indirect and trying to hint to a woman that you like her and that you want to take her out, but you're not actually asking directly for the date, this is a big reason why you are failing at being able to attract women, is because if you're not doing that, they're not going to see your form of communication as masculine, and therefore they're not going to want to date you. So how can you be more direct in your communication? What does that look like? What is the difference between being direct versus indirect? I have a few examples that I've typed up that I'm going to read to you now. So first example, like I said, direct communication would be asking her for a date versus indirect, which is asking her what kind of guys she would date. Oh, what kind of guys are you into? Or what kind of guys do you normally fall for? When you ask that question, you're being indirect. Again, the woman can tell by that question that you probably have an interest in her, but she's going to play along with this question and act like she doesn't know what you're talking about because she is already taking you off the list because you didn't directly just say to her, hey, we should go out sometime. Like, that's a very easy, simple ask. It's not you giving a wedding proposal. It's not you saying you outright want to date her or marry her, but it is saying there's a spark of something that you see there and you want to inquire further. And being able to just directly say that and ask that is going to be better for you than trying to do this thing of like, well, let me find out what kind of guy she likes first. Let me see what she's into. You don't need to know that. If you ask her out and she says yes, you now know that you're the kind of guy she's into. It's very simple. Another thing, let's say you're on a date and you want her to go back to your place. A direct version of doing that would be to say, hey, let's go back to my place to get some cocktails or whatever. Or I like to do the thing of like during the course of the outing, I'll mention like I have some cool artwork at my place or I have some cool things at my place that are pretty awesome. And then towards the end, if I think things are going well, I'll say, hey, so you want to come back and check out that artwork that I was talking about or that poster that I had or this or whatever. But the point is you have to do the direct ask of, hey, let's go back to my place versus sitting there on the date, hoping that maybe she'll bring it up. Or she'll say, you're waiting for her to give the thing of like, hey, we should go back to my place. Like most women aren't going to do that. Even women that want to do stuff with you are still going to be like, he's the guy and I want to feel like I'm being desired by him. So if he wants me to go back to his place, he will directly ask that. Do you know how easy it is to get a woman back to your place if you just simply ask? Like a closed mouth don't get fed. And honestly, if a woman is legit feeling you on those first couple of dates, she's actually waiting for you to ask that question. That doesn't mean she's going to say yes all the time, but even just you having the boldness to ask, she now knows that that's out there as an option that she might want to exercise on the second date, on the third date, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're just trying to wait for her to do it, it's probably not going to happen, okay? Another thing, making escalating moves versus waiting for her to make them. Now, I will preface this by saying this. I do believe that in terms of breaking the touch barrier, you want to really wait for the woman to break that in a sense that that lets you basically let you know that she's comfortable with you also being in her space. So what I typically do is like during the course of the date, if I'm walking and we're walking next to each other, I might walk a little bit closer to see if she walks close to me. During the course of a dinner, I might be telling a story and I'll put my hand out on the table and see if she touches it. But these are all things that I'm still making moves that say, hey, I'm open to touch. If you're open to touch and you touch me, then I know you're possibly open to more touch, okay? But that said, once that touch breaking has been established, it is now your job as the guy to make the escalating moves to higher end touches that could lead to the bedroom, okay? So don't expect that if a woman touches your hand and she's open to touch, that she's going to be the one to try to go for the kiss. She's going to be the one to try to like grab at your crotch or these other places to indicate she wants to hook up, okay? These are moves that as the guy, you still have to make. If you're not the one making these moves, I've seen plenty of women on Reddit forums. I've talked to plenty of women in my personal life that'll be like, I was on a date with this guy and things are going great and I wanted him to kiss me, but he didn't kiss me. I wanted to make some moves, but he didn't make any moves towards me. Is he gay? Does he really like me? Et cetera, et cetera. Don't get into that. Now, again, you making these moves, some of them are going to get rejected. You're going to go for a kiss sometimes, and you're going to get the cheek. You're going to try to touch for a certain part of her body, and she might slap her hand away. All these moves mean is, hey, not yet. But if she's still with you on the date, she's still vibing, having a good time, those moves might come later. But the point is, if you don't put them out there, then don't expect for her to be the one to do that. She's trying to stay in the feminine role, so you have to stay in your masculine role and make these moves that she can decide to accept or not accept, okay? Understand, as a guy, a big part of this, honestly, is being willing to accept rejection, because that is the biggest thing, is that, again, women, part of the reason they do indirect communication is because they don't want to get rejected by saying something too direct. So that said, as the guy, you got to get used to that. Recognize that you're going to make some moves and you're going to face some rejection, but even being willing to make a move that might get your rejection will get you more respect from women, and will oftentimes have women allow you to do more things with them than if you didn't take that risk at all, okay? So don't be afraid to make those big moves and be more direct and bold in your communication, okay? Now, I will say this one more thing. With that said, this does not mean you need to say things like, hey, so I really like you, and I think we should be together, and blah, 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 blah. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. In that department, women are going to steer the ship on where they're emotionally at with you in terms of the dating process. Because honestly, we know, guys, after the first or second date, we're already ready to wipe them up, okay? So in that respect, we tend to move a bit too fast. So as your job during that time is to be direct in the sense of asking her out, of letting it be known through your actions that you are building an attraction to her, that you want to do more things with her. And when you're doing that in the right way, then women will let you know, in terms of various parts and stages of dating, where they're at with you emotionally, okay? Let them be the ones to be direct with you emotionally in terms of where they're at, because they have to check out more things about you before they're completely assured in their feelings for you, okay? So in that respect, if you're feeling after date 2, oh, I really like you, we should be boyfriend, this and that's not something you want to be direct with right away, okay? Just keep doing things action-wise that let her know that you're really feeling her, and let her be the one to come to you to ask things like, what are we? Are you seeing anybody else? Do you want to be in a relationship, et cetera, okay? So just want to clarify that point. But definitely, like I said, guys, in terms of the things that you want with a woman, be direct and clear in those things, and don't be so afraid. Don't do this indirect communication that's going to make her feel that you're more in your feminine than in your masculine. Thank you for watching this episode of the Introvert Dating Success Show. If you found the info in this episode to be helpful, please show your support by clicking on the tip jar tab, the link of which can be found at the website and in the description below. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and comment on this episode, and catch new episodes right here on YouTube or wherever podcasts can be found. In the meantime, be sure to check out these other episodes so you too can learn to date as your introverted self while still getting your precious alone time. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.